Jetpack Compose is a modern toolkit for building native Android UIs, and it's changing the way developers create apps. But to truly harness its power, you need to understand how Compose manages UI updates efficiently. Two key concepts that help with this are the @stable and @immutable annotations. These annotations inform the Compose compiler about the stability and immutability of your data, which directly impacts performance. In this video, we'll break down what these annotations mean, how they work, and why they matter for your Compose projects. Let's start by understanding the basics of Compose's recomposition process. Jetpack Compose, the UI automatically updates when your data changes. This process is called recomposition. However, unnecessary recompositions can slow down your app. That's where stability comes in. By marking your classes or functions as stable or immutable, you help Compose decide when it really needs to update the UI. This leads to smoother performance and less wasted processing. So, understanding and using these annotations is not just about code style. It's about making your app faster and more efficient. Start with @stable. When you annotate a class or function with @stable, you're telling Compose that this object might change, but if it does, Compose will be notified. This means the object is predictable. It won't change unexpectedly, and Compose can trust it to behave consistently. For example, a class marked as @stable guarantees that its properties won't change unless you explicitly update them. This helps Compose avoid unnecessary UI updates, making your app more responsive. You mark a class as @stable, you're indicating that its instances are stable. Their properties won't change unless you make a deliberate update. For instance, consider a data class representing a person. If you annotate it with @stable, Compose knows that unless you create a new instance or update a property, the data remains consistent. This reduces the number of times Compose needs to recompose the UI, leading to better performance. You can also use @stable with functions. Marking a function as @stable means it always produces the same output for the same input and doesn't cause side effects. This is especially useful for utility functions or calculations that are used in your UI. By marking them as stable, you help Compose trust their results and avoid unnecessary recompositions, keeping your UI efficient and responsive. Here's a simple example. Imagine you have a data class called person with properties like name and age. If you annotate this class with @stable, Compose knows that unless you explicitly change the name or age, the object remains stable. This means Compose won't waste time updating the UI unless there's a real change, which is exactly what you want for performance. Now let's talk about @immutable. This annotation is an even stronger guarantee than @stable. When you mark a class or function as @immutable, you're telling Compose that once an instance is created, none of its properties can ever change. This is perfect for data that should remain constant throughout its lifecycle. By using @immutable, you give Compose the confidence to skip recompositions entirely, unless a new instance is created. Marking a class as @immutable means all its properties are completely immutable. Once you create an instance, its data can't change. For example, an address class with properties like street and city, when marked as @immutable, ensures that these values are set once and never modified. This is ideal for data that represents a fixed state, such as configuration or profile information. You can also annotate functions with @immutable. This means the function does not modify any state and always returns the same result for the same inputs. It's a strong guarantee for Compose, allowing it to optimize recompositions even further. Use this for pure functions that never change any data or have side effects. Consider a data class called address with properties like street and city. If you annotate this class with @immutable, Compose knows that once you create an address, its values will never change. This is especially useful for representing things like user profiles or configuration data that should remain constant, ensuring your UI only updates when absolutely necessary. What's the difference between @stable and @immutable? @stable means properties don't change unexpectedly, but they can be updated if needed. @immutable means properties can never change once set. Both annotations help Compose optimize recompositions, but @immutable provides a stronger guarantee, leading to even fewer UI updates. Choosing the right annotation depends on how your data should behave in your app. By correctly annotating your classes and functions with @stable and @immutable, you give Compose valuable information to optimize UI updates. This leads to better performance, smoother animations, and a more responsive app. It's a small change in your code that can have a big impact on the user experience, especially in complex applications. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you have a profile class marked as @immutable and a user settings class marked as @stable. In your Compose UI, you display the user's profile and settings. When you change the theme in user settings, Compose updates only the relevant parts of the UI. The profile information remains unchanged, demonstrating how these annotations work together to optimize your app. When you run your app and interact with the UI, you'll notice that clicking the Change Theme button updates the theme text, thanks to the stable annotation on user settings. Meanwhile, the profile data stays the same, as it's marked at immutable. This clear separation of mutable and immutable data helps Compose manage updates efficiently and keeps your UI consistent. Wrap up, using it stable and at immutable in Jetpack Compose is essential for building efficient, high-performance Android apps. Annotate your data classes and functions thoughtfully. Use it stable for objects that may change but do so predictably, and at immutable for data that should never change. This helps Compose minimize unnecessary UI updates, resulting in a smoother user experience. Start applying these annotations in your projects and see the difference in performance and maintainability.